Hi. No bullshit. No memes. Just my opinion. Here are some things I think would be good for Warframe. It's pretty obvious that because newer updates tend to be bigger and more ambitious, the release of new content is spread further apart, oftentimes for months on end. This causes the plot of the game to basically just be put on pause after every cinematic quest release. To fix this, I would advise one of two solutions. The first one would borrow the concept of a constantly updated world from Guild Wars 2's Living World. In order to make the game feel more alive, for lack of a better term, side stories as well as appropriate mini-quests could be made in small intervals, such as one per month. Imagine taking the season idea from Nightwave and applying it into small-sized quests such as the Limbo Theorem or Nata. Of course, a problem here would be manpower, because DE is obviously not a large company, so even though devoting resources for this would do a bit to solve the there's fucking nothing to do problem, it could also cause mainline content to take longer to be released. The second solution would be to have a team at DE created specifically to write brand new material into the codex. What sort of material? Anything that can tie into the universe, whether it be voice recordings such as the Ghoul fragments, or Oaken-era scriptures, side stories from currently existing characters, it really doesn't matter so long as it makes sense for the game. Although this would really only appease the lore nerds in the game, having a constantly updated source of stories and mythos would make the codex more like an actual codex instead of just being a glorified encyclopedia. We all know that we still haven't received the trailers for Hydroid Prime, Zephyr Prime, Limbo Prime, Chroma Prime, Mesa Prime, Equinox Prime. You get the idea. Obviously animation takes a long time to make, which is why I believe it would be better if DE had a third party handle the creation and/or animation of Prime trailers. This would remove a bit of the workload that comes with making a Prime trailer from DE's side of things, resulting in more employees becoming available for other projects for Warframe, including the creation of new content. As much as I love seeing new cinematics being made for Prime Warframes and such, they are not a priority when compared to big update blocks such as the new War or Railjack, which is why I think it would be better if another studio or company handled Prime trailers instead of DE. As we all know, DE occasionally posts works in progress and teases on Twitter. That's perfectly fine and all, but I think a slightly better and more transparent method of conveying in progress works to us players would be to create an official developer blog or web page that is updated with everything that DE is working on regarding Warframe. Basically, DE can have a public bulletin board or blog with a list of everything that is being actively worked on, everything that is planned to be worked on, and everything that is on hold. If desired, DE can also add estimated development measures for everything on the list, such as: this is how long we think we'll take to make this and this is how much we think we have done for this. Obviously that can't be exact, because the amount of time required to make content can vary. However, an estimated date of completion would at least give players a very rough estimate of how long until something gets released to the game. Fashion Frame is something that people put a surprising amount of time into. Due to that, I believe it would be great if it could receive some more support, in the form of tweaks, bug fixes, and advertisement. What do I mean by advertisement? Well, I assume that some of you out there are familiar with this style of Fashion Frame content. With that in mind, imagine if this level of Fashion Frame were put out to the general public as an advertisement for Warframe. You wouldn't need any narration, gameplay, or overdone theatrics. Just fashion. You'd be surprised how much attention would be garnered with just well-made aesthetics set to a kick-ass beat. It's pretty clear that we have a lot of weapons or mods that are either mastery rank fodder or in need of buffs. To make everything at least relatively viable, I would advise having a single massive patch dedicated to just bringing up the stats of old gear, kind of like how the Chains of Harrow update revisited and buffed a lot of already existing weapons. That doesn't mean to give everything godly Riven disposition, because all that will do is turn the Riven market into a bigger shitfuck than it already is. A bump across the board in terms of stats would suffice, I think. To clarify myself, I don't mean to make every weapon in the game be overpowered. What I mean is to make every weapon be viable at bare minimum. Sure, the meta will never go away, but all weapons in the game should be at least viable, because otherwise mastery rank fodder would oversaturate the game. There are two types of augments. There's the type that are worth using, or the ones that have no true purpose. The problem with augments nowadays is that they're pretty hit or miss, and because of that, there's not much reason to equip an augment when it takes up a valuable mod slot, especially if the augment in question is bad. Adding an augment slot to all warframes won't fix the problem. On paper, that would open up every build in the game to an augment, but in practice, adding an augment slot will only make the few augments that are actually good be mandatory across the board. After all, even if you had an augment slot, what would be the point of using this, when this exists? Those are just my thoughts. This will be the last video for a while, because I will be going on my second deployment tomorrow. Don't worry about my universal glyph code, my moderators in the Church of Bourbon will put out an announcement once my universal glyph code is in the game. If you care as to when I'll be back, hop on my Discord or keep an eye on my Twitter. Anyways, I'll be back soon. See you later, and thank you for watching.